morning. I'm Mayor Tommy Roberts. Welcome back to the Mayor's Table. My guest this morning is Rob Mays, the City Manager for the City of Farmington. Rob, good to have you back.
It's great to be here.
Rob, you've initiated an outreach effort communicating to our citizens through our social media outlets some fun facts about the City of Farmington and its operations. And these are facts that we like to tout because they represent effective and efficient operations at the City of Farmington, and they're somewhat comparative in nature in that we benchmark some of our statistics against other communities in the area. And you're calling this Fun Fact Friday, and you've put out 4 of these communications already and have plans to do more. Maybe not on a weekly basis, but periodically over time, where you can just put out some information that we think our citizens would like to know and might enjoy knowing. Well, let's go back and summarize the 4 communications that you put out. We've talked about electric rates, water rates, tax rates, and then where your taxes go. So let's talk about electric rates.
Yeah, well, before I do, I'll just say I can't take credit for an initiative to really be focusing on communication. That's something that you came into office and challenged us as staff to find ways to get information out. You started this program as one avenue, and we've done a lot more with our website, a lot with social media, because there's just so much going on that people don't know about, and we find that people are very interested in these things. And these were 4 facts that we have found people highly interested in, and you don't know what you don't know. When I pay my electric bill, the fact is it seems high to me. I don't like paying my electric bill. But then when I look at comparative other cities and see what others are paying, I feel a lot better about the city I live in. And so we did 4, as you said. We talked about electric rates, water rates, our low tax rates, and then just kind of where our taxes go. So the first one was electric rates. We put this out 4 Fridays ago, just like you said, touting the fact that we have high, reliable electricity at a very, very low cost. Our effective average rate for residential customers is 20% less than the New Mexico state average, and about 20% less than the national average. So there's the big, broad benchmark. But when you come closer to home, it's even more dramatic. And so we don't compare ourselves to criticize other places. It's just that people need to understand the value that they have. This is a great place to live. And so, for example, on an average residential electric bill, Farmington electric utility rates are 51% cheaper than Durango. And that's there's reasons for that. There's a philosophy of trying to run our operation as low cost as possible and provide the best service. APS, Arizona Public Service, we're 43.7% less than. Continental Divide, 29%. HEMA is 22%. P&M, which is most of the state, is 21.2%. City of Aztec, we're 20.7% less than, and on it goes to SRP Arizona, about 20%, and then Hobbs, about 4%. So we're proud of those electric rates, and we want people to know that while we don't pretend that paying bills are easy, we know it's a sacrifice, but we really want our citizens to know that they're getting great value, high reliability electricity. So again, about 20% less than the state and national average, 50% less than Durango, 20% less than P&M, and about 20% less than the city of Aztec.
And we recognize that we've had to increase our rates here in the past several years, but we also note that other jurisdictions are also having to do the same. The cost of doing business and providing services is just incrementally increasing over time, and the City Council, the City of Farmington, has had to consider proposed rate increases, and in fact have implemented some proposed rate increases in the electric utility area as well as the water and wastewater area. So we recognize that these rates aren't stagnant. They're subject to being changed to reflect the cost of providing service, but nevertheless, comparatively speaking, these rates historically have been lower than surrounding areas and remain lower than surrounding areas.
That's right, and that's exactly how we set rates. You mentioned a cost of service. We do a study to see exactly what it costs to deliver reliable electricity. How much do we need to be reinvesting in the infrastructure to make sure that the people we take for granted that when we turn the water on, it comes on, and it's safe, and the electricity works. And so we charge what we need to charge to maintain that system. But we are proud of those comparative rates.
Let's move on to water rates.
Yeah, it's a great segue into that. We've talked a lot about electric rates, and we don't talk as much about water. Of late, I've heard some complaints about water, and it's kind of the same thing. Water is expensive. An average household water and wastewater combined bill is almost $100 a month. That's a lot of money. We recognize, again, we're not making light of how high it is. We just need people to know how well we're doing comparatively. So the same thing on water. We have some of the lowest water and wastewater rates, certainly in the state, about 63% less than Santa Fe, 53% less than Rio Rancho, 46.6% less than Durango, about 17.5% less than Bloomfield, and about 16.9% less than Aztec. So again, we're not criticizing these other communities. We just think it's fair that our citizens know that while that $100 bill might be hard to pay, if you lived in Durango, it'd be $146. It'd be $163 if you lived in Santa Fe, or $117 if you lived in Bloomfield. So, and that again represents we do a cost of service and we maintain a heavy investment in our infrastructure and make sure that our pipes work and our you just did a mayor's episode here last week about the $20-some million upgrade to our wastewater treatment plant. These things aren't free and they have to be paid for.
A skeptical viewer might say, well, you're just identifying those jurisdictions to which we compare favorably.
Yep.
Are there jurisdictions out there who provide these services at lower rates than we do?
That's a great point. These are the comparable cities because when it comes to water and wastewater, the costs are driven by the type of water you have. So the fact is that Albuquerque is less than us. They have a scale that makes them really non-comparable to the city of Farmington. And then a place that's notably less is Las Cruces, for example. It's quite a bit less than us, but they use surface water that's pumped out of wells. And so it's just not apples and oranges in terms of how you get we have to take it out of the river, pump it up into our lake, pump it to our treatment plant, heavy, costly treatment, and then distribute it back out to our citizens. As opposed to if you could take well water, it's a fraction of the cost. So we think this is a fair representation of apples to apples in terms of size, in some sense, type of system, where the water comes from, et cetera.
Okay.
So
let's move on to tax rates.
yeah, we like, we like to say that we are proud of the fact that our tax rates are low, but we also recognize it's the only way the government's funded. So there's a direct correlation to how much tax revenue we have and the services we can provide. We've talked a lot about how our tax revenues today, GRT, are about 20% less than they were in 2009. But nevertheless, our tax rates have remained extremely low, and we've tout quite often. We want people to understand that again, just like with electric and water rates, we recognize paying taxes as a sacrifice, but comparatively the value of what our citizens get in terms of quality of services in this community, when you compare that to the comparatively low tax rate. So we have about the second lowest tax rate in the entire state of New Mexico. The only city that's lower than us is Albuquerque. They have a 2.4% tax rate. Ours is 2.66. And then they just go up from there. The highest is Ruidoso with 4.2% and everything in the middle. Bloomfield about 3.2. Aztec 3.03. Durango 3. And again, these are the city rates. So one of the things we are always trying to remind people of is that the elected officials in the city of Farmington only control the local tax rate. They have nothing to do with how much counties charge. So there's a base rate, in our case 2.6. Our county, San Juan County, tax 1% on top of that. And then our state tax on 3.9 on top of all that, which gives that total rate. So the next slide really illustrates that because you see the total in a pie chart.
Before we go there, again, the total tax rate in San Juan County, or at least in the city of Farmington, is 7.625. and that's the percentage that our viewers will recognize on their
Yep.
bills
you
for the
cash
purchase
re-
of goods and services.
Yep.
And but it is important to note, as you have done here, and to illustrate that out of that 7.625%, the city of Farmington is only receiving 2.66%, and the balance goes to the county in a lesser proportion, and to the state of New Mexico in a larger proportion.
Yeah, and we're going to have some slides up, I think, on the screen that illustrate that, and that kind of leads to the fourth topic, really, is kind of where do those taxes go?
Right.
And we've got a pie chart that illustrates that. So there's the 7.625, that's what's on the cash register receipt, but then you see it broken down. So 2.66% of the city, as you just mentioned, county, a little over 1.06%, and the state, 3.9. And then to put that in terms that are even a little easier to understand, for every dollar that a citizen pays in Farmington, when you buy goods or services in Farmington, for every dollar that you pay, 35 cents of it is all that goes to the city of Farmington in terms of supporting all of our public safety, our quality of life, our roads, our streets, our infrastructure, our library, our transportation. Only 35 cents of every dollar. 51 cents of it goes to the state of New Mexico, and about 14 cents goes to San Juan County.
And we know, and we want to be sure we communicate to our viewers that probably about 75% of the services that are provided to the citizens of Farmington are funded through gross receipts tax revenues. There's a portion of property tax that we receive that helps to fund services, but it's a relatively small amount. But I think it's also instructive to talk about the combined gross receipts tax rates and property tax rates, because that's another metric that lets our citizens know what we're doing in the context of taxation relative to other communities.
Yeah, well, one of the things I always like to point out is because when I show the chart of the comparative GRT rates, and I mentioned that Albuquerque is 2.41% and we're 2.66, yes, they are lower than us, but their property taxes are nearly double what ours are. And so on the same house in Albuquerque that you would pay $2,800 a year in property tax on an average $200,000 house, you only pay 18 or you only pay 15 in Farmington. So that's a big savings. You combine those two together, that really brings down the relative effective tax rate. This is a very, very good place to live, again, in terms of low taxes comparing value. And people are also then just as surprised to learn where their property taxes go. It's almost a week doesn't go by that I don't have somebody remind me they pay their property tax. And they do that in the context of, wanting a road paved or a park built or some other service. And again, people don't realize that, just as you mentioned, most of our services are paid for gross receipts. So property tax primarily goes to the schools in the county. So we've got a breakdown as well that I know is going to be up on the screen. At average, if you take, again, back to every dollar of property tax that a citizen pays on a piece of property, here's the breakdown of where it goes. The largest share goes to the Farmington Municipal Schools. They get 42 cents of every dollar. San Juan County gets 29 cents of every dollar. San Juan College gets 17 cents of every dollar. State of New Mexico, 6 cents, and the city of Farmington, 6 cents. So again, for every dollar of property tax, 6 cents on an annual basis of an average $200,000 house in Farmington. $93 is the total property tax paid in an entire year that goes to the city of Farmington.
These are good numbers, and very positive numbers for our citizens who live in Farmington. I want to move back to the gross receipts tax rate discussion, and just simply note there that we are a regional shopping hub, and we say, and I think it's been demonstrated statistically through research, that we have about a 300,000 person retail population, and people are coming from a radius of 100 miles around Farmington to come in and do their retail shopping. We know that the gross receipts tax rates are higher in those surrounding communities. Aztec, Bloomfield, Durango has a sales tax, but I assume Cortez, also a sales tax system, but again, comparatively speaking, our rates are lower than any of those rates in those surrounding communities. So we recognize that there is an incentive for people to come into Farmington to shop. It's not just convenience, it's not just a greater selection, but there probably is a price factor there as well.
Yeah, yeah, and again, that's what we stress. These aren't criticisms; they're just facts. And in some ways, to compare our tax rate to, say, Bloomfield or Aztec might not be a total, entire understanding of it. We definitely have a benefit of being a retail hub. Just like Albuquerque. The reason Albuquerque's taxes are so low is, again, not only are their property taxes higher, but they draw from all over the state, obviously, in terms of GRT. And so that's a great point.
And I think a final point that I would like to make for the benefit of our viewers is that we are very engaged in the economic development effort. And as part of that effort here, we try to identify our strengths and our weaknesses, and we try to tout our strengths and work to improve on our weaknesses. But one of the very significant strengths that we have are our low electric utility rates, our low water and wastewater rates, and our low tax rates. So we're talking about things
That's right.
that make us a destination place in the context of trying to expand our local economy, and it's something that we can sell to prospective industry partners.
That's right.
And economic development is a tough job to do. It's never ending, and the wins there are few and far between, it seems, particularly in the kinds of economic times we're dealing with. But we certainly do stress these factors as being positives in the context of economic development. So, Rob, I appreciate your involvement here and your efforts to get this kind of information out to our citizens. We get this information out annually at our budget hearings. Try to get the information out to some new ears and some new eyes every year. But I like the effort here being made to communicate these facts. Anything you'd like to add before we close? All right. Thanks again for being here.
Absolutely.
I want to thank all of you for joining us once again on the Mayor's Table, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next Monday.